Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Boudoir. I am your host, Aisha Jones. I just want to say my sincerest apologies for not showing up last week. Mercury retrograde was retrograding. My SD card kind of broke and I was not able to literally insert it into my camera, so I had to order a new one. So sorry about that random break, but I am back. The episodes are popping. The podcast is still on fire. Thank you guys so much for subscribing and downloading and rating me and just letting me know how much you guys are rocking with me so far. Let's keep it going. Happy September. I hope everybody is enjoying this nice end of summer warmth, but also with a little bit of that breeze. That's like honestly my favorite time of year. Let's get into today's episode. I wanted to talk all about discernment because that is something that I feel like is the foundation for a lot of the things we talk about on the Boudoir. You know, discernment when it comes to relationship, discernment when it comes to friends, how to move forward in certain situations that don't maybe completely align with you. We're always talking about that discernment. You know I love me a good definition. We're gonna look up exactly what discernment means. Discernment is the ability to make a smart judgment about something. For example, if you're voting for student council president, you need to use discernment to pick the best candidate. The noun discernment describes a wise way of judging between things or a particularly perceptive way of seeing things. So it's basically just a very fancy and in some cases very spiritual word for making inferences, making educated guesses, situational awareness. It's kind of like a concoction of all of these different types of words. It's basically being able to read between the lines and see things that aren't always completely in your face, or hear and listen to things that aren't exactly being directly showcased in front of you. Learning how to use our best judgment in order to move forward in certain situations. Now, I say discernment is spiritual not only because a lot of religions, especially Christianity, will use the topic of discernment, but it's also kind of like having a sixth sense, like having the ability to see something that isn't 100% right in front of you. I think the best place to start when we're talking about discernment and how to develop it is learning how to trust your gut and your instincts. And for the large part of this episode, I'm going to be talking about discernment under the lens of dating and relationships, but this can also apply to so many different areas of life. It's not just limited to relationships. A lot of dating experts will say if you are first starting to get to know somebody and you feel a lot of butterflies, you feel all of those feelings swirling around in your tummy and you're just feeling so like overly anxious to be with this person or to hear from this person from text or phone call, a lot of the times that is either a trauma response or your body telling you that this person is not safe. What we think is like, ooh, this is so electric, the sparks are flying, can a lot of the times be things that could hurt us so badly in the end. And of course, being raised and socialized as women, we're taught to see the best in people, to always give people the benefit of the doubt. It's often looked down upon for women to play like dating games, whereas with men, it's more expected from them. Like, oh, boys will be boys. This is just how they do. They're wired differently. They're wired to want different things from women. So like when you're being fed that type of messaging, your discernment can dwindle and dwindle and dwindle. When you're not flexing that discernment muscle and you're just assuming that everybody has your best interest at heart, that is when we find ourselves in not so savory situations, right? Like you want to believe this person is everything they say they are. You want to believe that whatever projection or image you have of them in your head is actually truthful. A lot of the times when we really like somebody, we will idealize them in our heads and build up this type of like image where they can do no wrong and everything is just perfect, the rose-colored glasses, what have you. That can set us up for failure. And the more we do that, the more we lean into like the delusional side, the more that you gaslight yourself and tell yourself, no, I didn't see that weird look, or I didn't notice him checking out that girl. When you try to make reality match your head, that is when you got to work on your discernment. Too much of ignoring that gut feeling, too much of ignoring yourself leads to other problems in the future. And that's why I say discernment is kind of like the baseline for every other facet of life, along with self-esteem and healthy, sense of self. But the less you listen to yourself and the less you tune into what your subconscious is thinking and what your body is actually feeling, the worse you get at being able to pick up those little subtle signs. A lot of the times these things suck, right? Because we are meant to be super detectives and like super sleuths and be able to tell and predict the future and know when somebody's going to be a bad person. And I try very hard to not fall into that like like borderline misogynistic. How could you not have known? You should have known better. How did you not see the signs? Like in some cases, yeah, how sometimes the things are very blaringly obvious, but a lot of people can be very subtle with these things, and it sucks that you almost do have to kind of be on guard and just on the lookout for these certain types of things. But at the end of the day, to me, it's always better to have like a little voice in the back of your head, not in a paranoid way, but just like, yeah, things are great, I love how things are going, but people are not perfect. There's always that 0.0001% chance of them disappointing you. It sounds very cynical, yes, but I think when you learn how to stop pedestalizing people and thinking that every man that enters your life is going to be the one, is going to be Prince Charming and can do no wrong, I think that that could also be equally as harmful as assuming that everybody is out to get you. I think those two extremes are very detrimental, but I think when you're able to find a happy medium of like being open-minded, being willing to put yourself out there and talking and socializing and dating, but also not idealizing people and pedestalizing people and losing your common sense, that's when we have to like reel it in and check in with ourselves. Discernment. But as I was saying before, it does suck that you kind of have to always be on the lookout for these types of things and watch out for signs. But these are just the times that we're living in. And it's better to live as the world actually is than to live how you think it should be, even though how you think it should be is probably the right answer. We have to just go with how things are, unfortunately, sometimes. So as you're learning to not romanticize people, you have to remember to try not to get too gassed up, especially in the beginning stages. Like when you first meet this person, you know nothing about them, so you can project whatever type of fantasy you want onto them, and your brain will in turn kind of let those guards down because you want to see that story actually come to fruition. And the feeling of new love is always exciting, right? Like that new energy, that those new conversations, like it's always fun to start that over with somebody new, right? But at the same time, you can't get so gassed up by just somebody is talking to me that you just lose sight of everything and you're just ignoring red flag after red flag after red flag. That is not cute. We can't do that. Discernment, especially since people are going to be on their best behavior when you're first starting out, of course, right? Because you're going to want to put your best foot forward. You're going to want to show the best sides of yourself and hide the worst parts of yourself and omit certain facts and things. So just be mindful of that. Everybody is trying to be on their best behavior. It's like when you first start school, like on the first day of school, you got all of your colored pens, everything is all neat and organized, you're ready to go. And then as the weeks go on, you're like, okay, when's the last day of school? Like you're ready to go. It's like that. Like people will eventually start to slip. So just let time pass. Like you don't have to be in such a rush to make something happen. Now this next one is crucial, okay? Like this is so important. If it doesn't make sense, it does not make sense. If it doesn't make sense, it does not make sense. I said, if it don't make sense, then what? It does not make sense. So don't try to make sense out of something that is nonsensical. You see where I'm going? Simple, basic. If you take one thing from this video, it's that. If it doesn't make sense, it don't make sense. So when somebody is trying to convince you and they're writing this long fable of whimsy and lies, you gotta be able to tell when somebody is just BSing you. If timelines don't add up, if details are getting mixed and mangled, certain people will try to pull the wool over your eyes and see how far and how much they can get away with. So keep that in mind, you know? This lighting is very angelic. I'm sorry, but this is like golden hour lighting. Just had to put that out there. But continuing on, yeah, don't let people sell you stories and lies. Like that's another part of discernment. A big part of it is like you're seeing this new shiny object, right? Like a new person, a new love is always exciting. It's going to be new and shiny, but after a while, like you're gonna see that there's little defects. Maybe they were trying to sell that car quickly just to get it off the lot and get it off their hands, but when you actually start to dig deep and start driving that thing, it's got a couple problems. Pick up on the subtle nuances and mood shifts when you're around this person. For example, this is like the classic fuckboy story, right? You're texting somebody, you're talking to somebody for weeks, months, whatever. Everything's la-di-da-di-da, everything's perfect. And then all of a sudden, those texts start coming in lesser and lesser and lesser. You start hearing from them less. And you're like, wait, what's happening? I thought everything was good. Tale as old as time, right? That's an answer in and of itself. Like, if you could go from talking to somebody every single day and you supposedly like somebody, and now those interactions are getting even more scarce as the days go on, that is an answer. They either got busy, that's the excuse they always like to use. They either got busy, or most likely they found somebody else and they've moved on from the equation. Some people can't use their big boy words and just simply say that. They'd rather have their cake and eat it too and just kind of keep you dangling on the side. But you should not be internalizing somebody else's behavior, because the thing that you want to do immediately is wonder like, well, what did I do? Did I say something wrong? Things happen. People go in their own separate directions. Some people are just less confrontational about it. But even if you're hanging out and you've noticed that like things are always electric, everything was good, and then you feel like that person is like kind of pulling away, that's not an accident. It goes back to like not lying to yourself and not trying to make things seem better than they actually are. You have to look at the facts of the situation and take those facts in. Of course, feelings are always going to try to get involved and intertwined in the situation, but facts are facts. And no matter how much it hurts, no matter how much you don't want that dynamic to change, you want to keep things in that spot that they were in when it was great and amazing. The nuances and the mood switch ups don't lie, y'all. They don't lie. Like, it's one thing if somebody's having an off day, but like if it's genuinely off and different, you gotta cut your losses there. And it's like, men know what they're doing too. So like they know that they've been texting you daily, talking to you daily, calling you daily, and then all of a sudden just stopping. Like, this is an actual planned tactic. So I just want you guys to remember that a lot of things are not accidental. These things are very well thought out and strategic. And sometimes no response is all the response you need. Before phones and all that, before the modern era, we were all cavemen and cave women and cave people, just figuring out this crazy world and communicating via hieroglyphics, right? When we were surviving in the wild, we had to listen to our intuition. Like, there was no, I thought I heard like a lion coming, but I don't know. I don't want to like sound mean. Maybe I should just be nice. Maybe it's not a lion. Like, we couldn't do that, or else we would be eliminated from the situation. As the world has gotten safer, not really, but you're probably not going to get attacked by like random animals. We don't have to hunt and gather. The point is that we were all given these traits at birth to be able to pick up on mood changes, energy shifts. The birds are chirping, the water's flowing, everything's nice, and all of a sudden you hear nothing. Yeah, that means the big bad scary lion or mountain bear is coming to kill you. It's the same thing. Everything's going la-di-da-di-da, everything feels good, you feel good, and then all of a sudden the energy shifts. You start questioning yourself, you start attacking yourself, picking yourself apart for no reason other than because of somebody else's behavior. The mountain lion, they're the bear, they're the one that's about to eat you, metaphorically. So it's the same thing. Like, we are all given these things for a reason. Don't ignore your instincts. And of course, there's always room to be wrong. Like, yeah, sometimes people are just overly critical and like maybe a little paranoid, but like, I'm talking about when you know something is off. When you know something is off, you gotta listen. Otherwise, you won't be able to trust yourself. Always be present too when you're with people. Like, when you are sitting in front of somebody, don't let your imagination tell the story. Like, you have to actually be aware and present of what's going on in the situation, right? I like to describe it as if you're watching yourself and the other person, as if you were watching the story unfold in front of you, as if you were watching in like third person omniscient. Like, you're not a part of the story, you're just simply observing and watching it, because that way you don't really have any sort of biases in the situation. Whereas if you were watching it and experiencing it from your point of view and you were only listening to your feelings and you were like, yeah, I know he's treating me like garbage, but he's just so darn cute. If you were watching and looking at it from a more objective point of view and looking at it from a more factual standpoint, it's easier for you to pick up when there's red flags. So it's like you're present, but you're also observing. Whereas when you're romanticizing people, you're just seeing the good in them. Your brain is like skipping over all of their faults to keep the delusion you have in your head. I always think it's a good idea to practice a little bit of healthy detachment. I don't think it's good to go full on like loner hermit mode. I mean, if you gotta do what you gotta do to protect your peace, I don't know your story, but again, you don't have to go to these extremes. Like, we can find a nice, healthy, happy medium. When you learn to detach a little bit too, it also humanizes that person. It allows you to see that they do have room to make some errors, no matter how big or small. They're not perfect. You're not perfect either. Like, somebody is bound to do something to disappoint you at some point. So I think having that ability to detach just a little bit and just kind of pull yourself away from the situation is really going to take you far when it comes to developing your discernment. And also, don't be afraid of being just a tad bit perceptive and judgmental. We hear the word judgmental and we're like, oh, that's so bad. Like, you're judging people for no reason. But sometimes people do give you a reason to judge them. Like, judgments are there for a reason. Again, we were talking about the birds and the stream and everything's all peaceful, and then all of a sudden there's no noise, and that's how you know there's danger coming. Like, it's okay to use evidence or like inferences about a certain person. Do I think you should verbalize your judgment? Absolutely not. Do I think you should just be walking around judging people for no reason that are just doing nothing to you? No. But a person that you're eventually going to share bodily fluids with, yes, I'm going to be judging you and judging your actions, your past actions. I gotta put me first. And my future children, you know? That's how I think about it. Especially as a woman in this world, this crazy world. Yeah, you gotta be a little strict. You gotta be a little detached, because it's a defense mechanism, yes, but it's just the smartest way to move about, if you ask me. And you'll know, like, again, as you're practicing and you're listening to yourself and listening to your body, you'll know when you can relax your stance a little bit and be a little more open and chill, versus when you can sense that there's a little bit of danger or somebody that doesn't completely have your best interest at heart. You'll know. Yeah, don't let these men make you feel bad for having standards and having, you know, certain just things that you do. The person that truly likes you, the person that truly wants to be with you, will jump through whatever hoop, whatever obstacle course, will literally run to the ends of the earth for you. They will not care about whatever things you got to do to keep yourself safe. We all got our own personal story. We all have things that we've overcome, and that's just how it is. And especially if they're a stranger and you're literally just meeting this person from scratch, you do not owe them any sort of loyalty, like, at all. I think it's also a good idea if you are a recovering people pleaser. That is a lot of the advice that we like to talk about on this podcast. If you tend to have those traits of, like, you know, being overly agreeable and like just going along with whatever somebody says and like just like trying to keep the peace, learn how to let people audition themselves to you. Like, let people bring their energy towards you, and like you be the decider of like who gets to stay in your circle, who gets to not. Like, if you're used to putting yourself in that driver's seat, in that like court gesture role of just trying to please everybody and appease everyone, put yourself in the queen mode, put yourself in the princess mode, where you let people impress you. You put yourself in the position to be impressed. I also think it's super important to study body language, basic body gestures and body language. Like, if somebody's more closed off, if they're more open, you know, study people's eyes and like certain types of eye contacts and smiles. I don't know if you guys saw that TikTok. Her name is Cheeto. I follow her. I think she calls herself the emotional intelligence expert or something, EQ expert. She says psychos and men that hurt women always have the same type of smile, and I can't do it, but just look it up, okay? I can't even try because I'm gonna get it wrong and somebody's gonna be offended, but it was really funny, but also kind of true. But yeah, just study body language. It's one thing for someone to say something and for their mouth to be moving, but it's a whole other thing. The body and the eyes never lie. So it's important to not just take this information in online and just store all of this information in hopes of using it one day. Like, you actually have to get out and interact with all different types of people in the world so that you know what works for you and what doesn't, what type of energy clashes with you and what energy makes you feel good. Because all of this practical knowledge is great, but it's nothing without actually getting into the real world and interacting. That to me is where the real learning and the real education comes in. So I hope you guys found today's episode interesting. I love to talk about this type of stuff. It is super important for you to develop your discernment skills. It's not about assuming that everybody's a bad guy. It's just knowing how to protect yourself and how to protect your energy. So make sure you guys subscribe and like this video if you enjoyed this episode, and also if you are listening to me on Spotify and Apple, do not forget to rate me 5 stars, leave a little review, let me know what you think of the show so far and maybe what episodes you'd like to see in the future. The comment section is always open for that type of stuff. If you have any sort of topic ideas, anything you want to talk about, or if you just want to tell me what you thought, how was your day, you know. I also make beauty, fashion, lifestyle videos on my other YouTube channel called Hey Aisha. I will leave that all in the description box down below, but I will see you guys next Tuesday. I hope you have an amazing week ahead and enjoy these last few weeks of warm weather. All right, talk to you soon. Bye. Discernment.